Well, this is quite an interesting vehicle to drive. It's interesting in the sense that it's very, very, very comfortable. It's very, very smooth. I'm sitting in this chair now. The driving position is superb. I could almost be in a park and old recliner. It is that comfortable. This is the automatic gearbox, which I have to say works an absolute treat. The gear change is so effortless and subtle, even with a big old car like this. It's so smooth. The transition through the gears is wonderful. The actual driving experience is rather impressive too. The car has this almost surreal sense of floating down the road. It's almost like you're riding on the top of a mill pond, you know, like you're planing in a boat which is silent. It's very smooth, effortless. It's absolutely wonderful to drive. It's one of the nicest driving experiences I've had in a long time, and I would compare this car to one of the larger Mercedes. The interior, it's quite a nice mixture of a blue and grey. Doesn't feel cheap plastic, it feels quite solid, nicely put together. Center console's laid out nice and simple. 0 to 60 test now. Conditions are wet. And there's 60. So we're obviously not dealing with a road rocket here. But this is not a car for speed, this one. This one is a car for nipping up and down the motorways, and I say that because it's just so nice to drive. It really is a special car like that. Even though this is not a fast car or a powerful car, I would be more than happy to drive this car through Europe, because all you've got to do is hold on to the steering wheel. It really is that effortless. Now the rear view vision is considerably obstructed by the headrest, which I think is a bit of a no-no. And the side mirrors are long and there's a lot of vision from those, so that's all quite good. The instrument cluster is very clear to read, and it is not obstructed by the steering wheel at all. And on that steering note, it is very, very responsive. Really does drive well, steers well. But I must admit, I don't feel like I'm connecting with the road. I feel like I'm connecting with the power steering. But I mean, this isn't a sports car, so maybe that's probably a small price to pay. The car does have like a volt sense to it. I do feel anaesthetized from the actual environment completely. The only noise I can really hear is a bit of rain on the windscreen and maybe a slight whir of the engine if I have to accelerate. But this is such a nice car to drive. I'm finding it difficult to find any fault with it, and normally the fact of driving a large car with an undersized engine can be very frustrating. It seems to not be on my attention with this vehicle, because it is just such a pleasure to drive. It handles the corners lovely. The brakes are responsive, they're not clingy. I put it in sport mode then, and I can't really see I felt any difference at all. It seemed completely insignificant. This is an interesting vehicle, this. I think what I would say to anybody thinking about buying one second hand is to go and take one for a test drive and try and get one with a bigger engine. I think if you get something like a 3-litre diesel, I think you're going to have an exceptionally good car. But even in this present format, this is by no means a dud.